Okay, so now let's just start speaking about the chaos. Now, chaos can be understood in a different ways, but oftentimes we either use it to describe something evil, bad, or we're using to describe the mm, complexity, to describe a fog that we fail to understand, the uncertainty perhaps, or something close to a storm of things. Like we either want to highlight the dynamics, it's chaotic, like many things are happening at the same time, or we want to highlight the complexity, right? So, well, oftentimes we just use it to describe the both complexity and the dynamics of the process. Um, but first, let's start why we even could view it as something negative as well. And for that, I want to bring you an example of a chaotic room, a chaos in the room, or let's say on the table, right? I think this is close to a Jordan Peterson example, which, well, is great. I guess familiar to you, right? And so imagine we have a dirty table. Now we could actually uh, prescribe a um, chaos term to it, right? We could call it chaotic. And now, why would we do so? Why do we call a messy table chaos? What do we mean by that? Do we mean it's just something bad? Or do we mean it's not clean, it's dirty? Or do we mean that there are just too many things? Now, my point is that I just want to tell you that uh, you calling it chaos has nothing to do with it being necessarily bad in itself. But it is bad in terms of what you want to achieve. It is bad for your purpose. Because if you would want to work on a um, table that has too many things on it, then um, it just would be hard for you to find anything there, right? It just makes you uh, not productive, right? Let's imagine you have really table like you have a table full of notes, full of pens and pencils, and too many stuff uh, is on the table, right? Too many stuff, and well, you just can't find anything, right? You can't use the space efficiently. Why? And it's not necessarily because there is anything bad with many things being on the table, right? Maybe they're not even dirty, maybe just lots of stuff. But it's really a chaos for you because there are too many things for you to handle with productively. You fail to handle all of these many things efficiently to achieve your goal, to stay productive, to stay high uh, performative, or whatever. So chaos is really um, stressing you, brings you anxiety. It is bad for you. It is something negative for you, but it is so not because of the complexity, not because of the chaos in itself. Chaos just describes the complexity that overwhelms you, right? Uh, so it's not because of the chaos, but it is because of your limited capacity to deal with it. It is because of your incapacity to deal with an overwhelming multiplicity of things, right? Um, so the chaos is the multitude and abundance which exceeds your capacity to handle it or to handle it efficiently, let's say. And so this is why we are trying to maintain order. That's why we're trying to keep the table clean, because we just want to be able to function, to stay functioning. Well, we want to be able to work with the space efficiently, and we cannot manage too many things because of our limited capacity. And so we want to stay functioning. And when we start to understand it, that the problem is not per se in the chaos or complexity or multitude itself, it is like literally a problem in us because we can't handle it, right? Then the question becomes basically, what can we do about it, right? And maybe even not necessarily with ourselves, but what should we do about it if the complexity and multitude overwhelms us? If it is too much to handle, what should we do about it? How can we handle it? And of course, one of the ways to handle it is, as we see ourselves doing, to clean up the table. It is to reduce the complexity, to our ability to handle it, right? So um, we reduce the complexity till it becomes simple or easy enough for us to handle. Uh, Another way to deal with chaos or complexity is actually to expand our capacity. And this is the reason why the self-improving um, videos are so popular, right? This is the reason you're watching the um, motivational shorts, because you want to address the chaos, the anxiety, the stress in your life, right? There are too many things that overwhelm you, too many things you can't deal with productively. And so you're looking for the ways to address it. And there are two ways. I showed you three, but there are two ways. So you can, again, to reduce the complexity, or you can expand your capacity, your ability to handle this complexity. And now there are actually problems with both of these alternatives, because um, you can't just expand your capacity without reducing the complexity. You can't, let's say, like override. Do they say override? You can't completely deal with the chaos, because there is the limitation for your expansion as well. There is the limitation to expansion of your capacity. You can't uh, immediately like infinitely increase your capacity. You can't do it. You can't immediately become God. You can infinitely increase your capacity. You can't, not even immediately, you can't become God, right? So there is a limitation to the expansion of your capacities as well. It takes a great amount of time to improve, to become better, and you can't even not only you can't improve instantly, there is also a reaching point for your improvement, right? As you obviously age, as time goes by, and you, at least your biological body uh, regresses in its function and capacity. So this is very important actually, because um, now let's discuss the problem of reducing the complexity. Um, so if you would just reduce the complexity and you would always try to deal with what you can deal, not only would you stagnate, and like you would stagnate in your development, right? You wouldn't develop, but you also would degrade. So you wouldn't just freeze in time, uh, you would age, right? And so let's imagine that chaos is a great complexity, right? And you can't deal with it efficiently. Now, instead of expanding your capacity, you're just prioritizing things, you just cut out the things you can't manage, you're just always cleaning the room until there are little things that you can manage, and they're always the same amount. So you don't try to increase your capacity at all. What happens is that as you age, you still can handle less and less things. Like your at least coming from your biological foundation, your capacity continues to decrease. So this is not good for you, right? Because it does make you to handle cows better, because your capacity decreases, because now you have to reduce the complexity more and more. You have it becomes less and less things that you can or have to prioritize, less and less things that you can deal with, less and less things you actually can handle. And well, what happens basically is that you slowly die, or you come close to it. You try resisting, but you can't resist the time, and your capacity continues to decrease. And so, well, this is no help for you um, for dealing with all this problem that you got, right? It can make it easier for you in, let's say, all this chaos and complexity that stresses you become less of a problem for you, less stressing, bringing you less anxiety. Yes, maybe you can succeed in that by reducing the complexity and like keeping everything prioritized and organized, and keeping only the small amount you can handle. But eventually, as the field of your capacity decreases, and the complexity actually is infinite, the infinite amount of multiplicity and possibilities, they actually continue to increase. And so you'll grow smaller and smaller and less capable and more, and it becomes more and more actually stressing for you. So what you truly want is you want to expand the capacity. But we already talked about the problem of expanding capacity. And what is the problem with expanding the capacity? It's that you can't do that only, because there is a limit even to the expansion of it. Um, and so what you want to do is you want to do both. You want to um, expand the capacity because you age, um, and because your capacity gets more and more limited. And you also want to reduce the complexity um, because multiplicity is actually infinite. And no matter how much you expand, it's still hard for you to grab it. And at least in the moment, it's definitely hard for you to grab efficiently, right? And uh, not only it's like you just can't grab everything, it confuses you. It becomes a noise. It stands on your way to be functioning. So just as the door to table was too many things, right? You can't get like if you truly need to use this space and there are just too many things, you can't find anything. It's too much for you to handle, right? So those are the two ways that you necessarily have to go for to deal with overwhelming multiplicity of things, with overwhelming complexity.